Hello, it's Reija, and it's time for my fall book haul, which is probably going to be a bit long because I have a lot of books to talk about. I have audiobooks, I have ebooks, and I have physical books, both library and bought books. So let's get cracking. First up, I want to talk about my audiobooks because a couple of months ago I got into Audible and I've used my credits to purchase a few books, and I've also bought some books from the Audible sales. So I'll just run you through the few books that I have bought. And I bought Between Two Thorns by Emma Newman because after listening to a lot of Tea and Jeopardy, I really like Emma Newman's humor and style. And I haven't read any books by her, and during Worldcon, Kaitlin suggested getting into her audiobooks because she narrates her own audiobooks. And then I got The Upside of Unrequited and Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli, both of which I've already listened to. And I actually enjoyed Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda a lot more. I just thought that The Upside of Unrequited wasn't quite as original and kind of used the same format. But they were okay. Nice wish fulfillment. And lastly, I bought Red Shirts by John Scalzi because this is a Star Trek satire. I'm not sure how I feel about Will Wheaton as the narrator, because if I'm thinking about an iconic voice in the Star Trek canon, I tend to think of characters like Data or Geordi LaForge or Worf, and not Wesley. But, you know, tastes. And I also bought The Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. Laini Taylor has been pretty big on BookTube, and a lot of people I follow have recommended her books. So when I saw the audiobook pretty cheap, I jumped at it and got it for like $3 or so. So those were all the audiobooks, and let us move on to the Kindle books, which there are quite a few because I've recently got into Kindle as well. And I've been loving it because the books are cheap and I can fit a lot of books on the Kindle. It's amazing. My commutes are saved. So just today, so this is going up tomorrow, which is Friday, and this is Thursday. Just today, there was a Humble Bundle with a lot of science fiction and fantasy books, and I bought the first tier of that Humble Bundle for $1. So I could get a Nalo Hopkinson book, and I got 5 books with that $1, so that was pretty amazing. I will leave that Humble Bundle link down in the description, so you can check that out as well. It's available during this week, so if you have the money, then please go and check it out, because there are some delicious finds there. But let's move on. I bought Falling in Love with Hominids by Nalo Hopkinson, which is sci-fi. And then I got In Calabria by Peter S. Beagle, which I know nothing about, but I would assume it's maybe fantasy? Probably. Not sure, but I'm eager to find out. Wicked Wonders by Ellen Clarks. And The Third Bear by Jeff Vandermeer, which I'm assuming might be either sci-fi or horror. I haven't read much by Jeff Vandermeer. I've only read The Annihilation, which is like survival and sci-fi. So I would assume it follows into a similar category, but I have not yet read it. Also, I bought The Invaders, which is a short story collection. And these were all in the Humble Bundle, so I don't know much about anything. I only bought them because I wanted that one Nalo Hopkinson book. And then I bought When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi, which is the November pick for the Discord BookTube server book club. Please join. And I'm currently reading it, and It's mightily emotional. It's depressing, heart-wrenching, and uplifting all at the same time, which is kind of insane. And then I have All Systems Red, which is the first one in the Murderbot Diaries. And I got this for cheap. It was like $3, so yay. And I've been hearing a lot of people talk about the Murderbot. I think Bree from BreeReadsBooks and Thomas from SFF 180 have all mentioned it, and I'm all for Murderbots. And then I got Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Coulthurst. This was a daily Kindle deal for like $1.99 at one point, so I jumped at it because female romance and princesses. Sign me up for that. And then I have The Red Threads of Fortune and The Black Tides of Heaven by J.I. Young, who is a non-binary author, and this is their silk punk novella duology. And I've been wanting to read them for quite a while now, and I bought them as soon as they were published for my Kindle. And then I have The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Laval. This was talked about by Victoria from Books and Things, and it is a kind of retelling from one of the most racist stories H.P. Lovecraft ever wrote. Like, the author wanted to retell the story because they enjoy Lovecraft, but as a person of color, how they navigate that fandom and the fact that Lovecraft was a raging bigot. So that's really interesting. And then I bought The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness, which is basically a book all about the NPCs or side characters in a fantasy universe. So that's pretty interesting. And then I have The Sorcerer of the Wild Thieves by Kai Asante Williams, which I also want to read very soon, and it is a fantasy story with mostly people of color as main characters. And lastly, I bought The History Is All You Left Me by Adam Silvera, which is a YA LGBTQ+ novel. And I've been wanting to read a lot more LGBTQ+ books recently, and this was a $1.99 deal on Kindle at one point, so I jumped at the chance to have it. And if I like any of these books a lot, I will most likely buy physical copies at some point. Which brings me to the next agenda, all the physical books that I need to hold. Okay, so here are the physical books that I've acquired. First, my library books, and the ones I've bought during this fall. Let's look at the library books first. First, I have 4321 by Paul Auster. This was longlisted for the Man Booker Prize, and it's basically a look at 4 alternative lives that could be led by this one person. And I thought that the premise sounded really interesting, and I want to try it out, even though lately I've heard some mixed things about it. Next, I have the second volume of Monstress, which I've already read and I quite enjoyed. I feel like in the second volume the story is finally starting to reach its own pace, and it's starting to be a bit more unique, which I really enjoy. Then I have the first volume of Courtney Crumrin by Ted Knifey, and I've already read this one as well, and I quite enjoyed this one. Also, I really like all the short stories. It's kind of unusual to see a short story format in graphic novels. Usually they follow a kind of longer character arc. I picked up the first volume of Sunny by Taiyo Matsumoto, and I hear this is a kind of slice of life series, and I can't wait to read it. The art style looks very unique and kind of sketchy, and I really enjoy that. And then I picked up the whole 6-volume series of Wet Moon by Ross Campbell. This is an older one, and I've wanted to read it because it really tackles body positivity and LGBTQ plus themes and depression and self-harm. I have heard that it tends to kind of glorify self-harm, but I still want to read it and find out for myself. So I picked up all 6 volumes. the second one, third and fourth ones, and fifth and sixth. And the final library book that I loaned out is Inkle by Jodorowsky and Mobius. And this is the Finnish translated edition, and I wanted to read it quite a while because this is a classic. And Mobius especially is one of the great Franco-Belgian comic authors and artists, and I wanted to get into his work for quite a while, and I thought that this edition was a good place to start because it collects the whole comic book into one covers. First, I bought Mythologia Fennica, which is kind of a dictionary type book about all the Finnish gods and folk tales and folklore and all the poems that people used to sing about creation and all the myths. And this was first published in Swedish in the 1700s. And Elias Lönnrot had this book with him when he was collecting poems for the Kalevala, and it was published in Finnish for the first time in 1995. And I've wanted to own this forever, and now they came up with this beautiful edition, and also the end pages are gorgeous, and it's in this very thick cream-colored paper, so I really love this edition. It looks divine. Next one I have is The Light Tree by Frances Hardinge, and I've heard many good things about it. I especially like that it's illustrated by Chris Riddell, and I hear that it is kind of a middle grade fantasy story / historical fiction set in this kind of creepy, weird place where there's this tree that thrives on people's lies. And I really love the different illustrations. One thing I don't like is that this version, the copy I have, it's very stiff. It doesn't really open properly, as you can see. You really have to work at it to get it to open. And then I picked up Star Wars from a certain point of view for the 40th anniversary of Star Wars. This is a short story collection focusing on all the different kinds of side characters and unnamed characters that inhabit the Star Wars universe. And I don't normally pick up anything that exists in a huge franchise such as Star Trek or Star Wars. I tend to go towards like original work by authors, and I'm always kind of skeptical about going into franchise books. But this sounded really interesting, and there are short stories by Ken Liu and Nnedi Okorafor, for example, which I'm really interested in. And I like this idea precisely because it focuses on unnamed characters and kind of extras and side characters. So that made me want to pick this up. It sounds really interesting. And I've always wanted to know what happened to the logistics officers on the Death Star. And the final book in this haul is Wild Beauty by Anna Marie McLemore. I've heard nothing but good things about this. This is kind of magical realism, fantasy, and I hear that it has awesome bisexual representation, which is actually one of the reasons why I picked it up in the first place. But just look at this cover. It's embossed, it's so beautiful, and it's green when it's naked. This is just beautiful. And I actually also like the end papers, which look kind of like this recycled paper with a kind of grain in it. Just divine. And there you have it. This has been my fall book haul. It was a huge one. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!